Welcome back to the Iron Purpose podcast. This is episode 31. So we're just cranking them out over here, and I have a special guest with me today, Brandon Hedlund. How you doing, man?
Hey, dude, I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me on tonight. Looking forward to this.
Another one of my guests recommended another person, and that was you. So I was like, all right, we'll get him on.
They don't
So
know
if
me
this
well
is,
enough, I guess.
I was going to say, if this interview is bad, I'm going to hunt her down. And I'm
Yeah,
going to have
yeah.
a chat with her.
Cut a lot out. Yeah, we got good. We got post edit for that.
Exactly. Yeah, it may be a 5 minute podcast, but we'll make it work.
That'd be rough. Shortest Iron Purpose podcast ever. Brandon had that in 5 minutes.
There we go. Breaking records over here, man.
I love it.
So what you been up to lately? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing well. Life is good. It is summer in the BLA. We were just up kind of in Walker area, Akeley, looking at property up that way. Just, a property hit the market on a lake with some friends on it. We're like, man, we should go check that out a little bit. So we ran up there, and then have you ever been over to like Village Square? They've got like a pizza parlor and ice cream spot in Walker. It's a great little day. So
Oh
yeah,
heck yeah,
the kids.
it's a nice area up there.
It is.
So would you consider moving up to that area then? Possibly.
I don't know if I could ever live there full time.
Yeah.
Walker, like Brainerd gets quiet in the winter, but Walker gets even more quiet. So, unless it's a Heel Pout Fest or whatever,
Right.
I think that actually got shut down. So, yeah, it's beautiful up there, but it'd probably be something seasonal or something like that. So,
Yeah, I had a training up there not that long ago, and it was like in January, so it was cold, and it
yeah,
was like, okay, cool, I'm up there for the weekend, but what do we do?
yeah,
So, I think football was still on, so it must have been, it was early January. So I like watched a football game, and I went outside. It was freezing cold. It was like, yeah, okay, yeah. Brainerd doesn't have much going on. Yeah, Walker doesn't really either.
yeah.
But
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm one of those unfortunate souls, where our county gets split, Cass County. So I have to go up to Cass County, the courthouse up there to vote and, do pretty much anything, driver's license stuff, like all that good stuff. So a little unfortunate on that side, but
yeah,
that's for sure. So
that's what it was
yeah,
for me growing up. We lived in Lakeshore growing up, so it's like Crow Wing County. It was like we were like a mile from it, but had to go up there for everything.
yeah, yeah,
I remember
absolutely.
taking the trip to get the permit to carries and whatnot. It's like, oh man, we're this close. Can't we just
Yeah,
go down there? But whatever.
yeah. No, that's good. So, yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I'm Brandon Hedlund, a father of three, real estate broker now. That's what they have to call me, I
There
guess.
you go.
I still prefer just realtor, mainly because I'm still an active realtor. Like, I'm still out there serving clients. When I started, Navigate North, I'm sure we'll talk a little about that.
Absolutely.
I knew that I wanted to stay in community with people, and to do that, you have to be on the front side helping them, with the buy, sell, invest, all that good stuff. So realtor, but dad, husband, sinner, broken, all the fun things. So yeah,
Absolutely. Been having a good start to the summer. You've been pretty busy as in real estate. Do you get to get out and enjoy the lakes and stuff, or how does that all work?
yeah. There's been an inverse correlation to what I expected starting the business, Navigate North. Like I've actually worked less now after starting the business, and 99.9% of that is just due to having incredible people around. Our client care coordinator, our realtors, like we've got a great team, and so they assist. I assist. We kind of do this trade offs, like when they need to go and spend time or do a vacation or get out of town with their families, like we're all just kind of there to help each other and support each other, because this is a weird industry, right? Like, there's late nights, there's weekends, there's all the things. I've literally been on the phone call with buyers, or sellers at 11 o'clock at night. Now I've definitely scaled that back a little bit and set, healthier boundaries. Unless you ask my wife, then I still have work to do. But slow and steady wins the race. Yeah, but to answer your question, it's been a great summer, man. We've been out on the lake a ton. We like to get out on Gull. There's, a sandbar on the north end of Gull, which we're closer to
Yep.
the north side, over by the Zogas access. And we
Okay.
just sit over there with the kids. It's quiet. It's peaceful. I'm a cruiser, so we have a pontoon. It's like the minivan of the seas out there. Which I also have a minivan. I never expected
Love
myself
it.
to have a minivan, but
Love it.
I digress.
My first car was a Chrysler Town and Country, and it was a blue minivan for about 4 years, and then I upgraded to a blue Dodge Caravan, and so it
Ooh,
was another minivan. Right. I mean, if I were to ever get a boat, I think I would do the same as get a pontoon because they're
Yeah.
just so you can fish from it. If you really wanted the tube from it, it wouldn't be anything crazy, but you can.
I feel like we should have jean shorts on while we're talking about this, shouldn't we? Like, this is the most dad thing we can talk about. Like, yeah, it's so nice. The kids are all in clothes and they can't get out, and it is what it is.
And the New Balance shoes.
Absolutely. Which I have a pair of those. I break them out about once or twice a year, and they're like the monarchs. They're the king daddy of them, and they are seriously. I bought them for a specific listing video. I was listing this property up in I think it was Pine River, and it was a beautiful house, beautiful yard, and it was right around Father's Day weekend. So naturally, like, let's play on Father's Day. Bought the jean shorts, the white tube socks. I think I had like a car T-shirt from Walmart. Like, man, it screamed 90s, and they are the most comfortable shoe. Don't knock it until you've tried it.
I might have to get a pair now.
Give it a couple of years, please.
Get a little more fatherhood experience under my belt. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. 4 months in. Probably
it's been many years. I graduated with your wife.
Yeah.
It's many years since I really like seen her and chatted with her, but I don't think she'd approve.
Yeah, get those off. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
It's for the bit. Yeah, mowing the lawn. What up? Fanny pack. Yeah,
absolutely full send.
Yeah. I love being out on the water too. I wish I had more. I feel like I just run out of time, to be honest. I guess I don't make the time to do it, but
yeah.
We're actually. It's funny that we brought that up because I was with my family tonight and we're talking about renting a pontoon.
Heck yeah.
In a couple of weeks, getting on Gull Lake and just cruising around because I grew up in Lakeshore and so we've worked at Grandview Lodge and stuff right there on the beach. So spent a lot of time on the water in Gull Lake. So it'd be nice to get out. Hopefully the air is a little less smoggy than it has been lately. I kind of sound a little nasally and I can't tell if I have a cold or if it's allergies or if it's
you're good.
All the smoke that Canada can't seem to figure out. But
oh my gosh, you're kidding. There's got to be a way that politicians are good at taxing stuff, right? We got to figure out a way to tax them for it, right? I was up in Walker and I was talking to the business owner up there, and there's a correlation, right, to like people that want to be outside, sitting on patios, driving by Bar Harbor, and I know they've had some technical difficulties lately, but it's been quieter at our lake patios, and for a seasonal place, it depends on this kind of tourism. It's hard. I mean, it is what it is, right? Like, there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
We can't build a wall that tall, but sorry, I won't go there. Anyways, it is what it is, right? But yeah, we're looking forward to not having, the smoke every single summer. So
it didn't seem this way growing up. Do you ever remember growing up like any summers being this bad?
I don't. I've mentioned that to multiple people, but it is what it is, right? That's what we get to deal with now as Minnesotans.
Yeah. What do you do?
So, it's worth it, right? Like, I say all this, I grumble, I complain, but 10 out of 10 times, every time I travel, like, I just have this longing, this feeling to be back home. I've never taken a trip in July, mainly because it's July in the Brandon Lakes area. Like, I mean, I've taken the small trips, but you don't really leave the Midwest in July. That's banger time. It's go time.
The place to be, absolutely.
Yeah, so we're heading out west to Wyoming next week, and I'm like, it's July, and I'm leaving for like 4 days, right? Like, I couldn't do very long, but I'm already looking forward to being back. That's just part of what we live with here in the BLA.
Uh-huh.
So
there's just something about it. I went off to school for a couple of years down in Florida and didn't really know what was going to happen if I wanted to come back or what the goal was, and here I am, and I'm planted. There's just something about it. You can get away for a while, and then you just come back, and you're like, yeah, this is home. Like,
where were you going to school down there?
Pensacola, PCC,
Yeah.
Pensacola Christian School, yeah. So I was there for 3 years. Long story short, the accreditation didn't meet what Minnesota requires, even though they kind of told me that it would.
I've heard that from a few people. You must be an LCC or a Lake Region kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Several. Yes, sir.
No, that's awesome. That's great. A lot of good people out of there, out of that school, and out of Pensacola. So that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved it. It was a good experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything because it kind of the way that it worked out. I was there for 3 years and then found out that I wasn't going to be able to graduate and go back to Minnesota. So I was like, okay, well now I have a decision to make. Yeah. Ended up making the decision to come back home, and the guy that so I worked at Grandview, like I mentioned, kind of growing up, and then I left to go do other things. And then when I came back from school, I was looking for a job, and the guy who was working there, I had worked with him previously, and he was the manager now or the boss, whatever. And he's like, "Hey, I just lost a lot of people, a lot of full timers. They went off to school, and I heard you're back in town. Do you want to come work?" And I was like, "You know what? Yeah, I loved it there. It was fun. The season was kind of wrapping up. So he's like, yeah, well, you just work the waterfront, work beach, and do boat rentals and stuff." And so I was like, sure. So I go back there, and sure enough, there's a young lady working there, Courtney Ryan, and she was doing boat rentals too. And she needed a spotter for tubing one day, and so I was like, all right, yeah, I'll be your spotter. And we just got talking, and a couple years later got married, and we have a kid. So it's crazy. God works in crazy ways sometimes. That that time where I was in Florida, I was like, this sucks. Like I got to go back, start all over. Like my parents got divorced while I was down in Florida, so I had to be away from all that. It was just all this difficult stuff, and then
Yeah.
to have it kind of open up and go, oh, all right,
Yeah.
this is why I needed to come back.
This is what it was all for. Yeah, absolutely. So was she
Crazy.
driving the boat, or were you? Were you the spotter?
She was driving. I was spotting. I was just chilling in the back watching, and she was driving.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Cool. Well, what a blessing. You guys
Absolutely.
have been married for how long now?
Coming up on 3 years, the 22nd of this month. So
Congratulations.
special. Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate
Was
that.
the first year hard for you guys? Adjusting, figuring out all the things?
I think, yeah, it's definitely an adjustment for sure. And then just kind of, because we've been together for, man, since I think that was 2017. So it's at like year 8. I think we're on year 8 being together. And every year brings a new challenge, something new that we have to, conquer. And it's just continual growth, not getting complacent in, I've always heard that complacency kills. I work in a profession where being complacent could literally kill you. Whether it was being a police officer or now being in a jail, you don't pay attention and you get complacent, it could cost you your life. And I think the same goes for, a marriage. You get complacent and it could kill the relationship. And so just being intentional with things and trying to understand each other and being slow to anger, slow to frustration, and responding rather than reacting out of emotional. There have been times where we've got a little heated like any couple would, and then it's just like, what are we doing? Like, I got to take a step back. The only reason this conversation is getting heated is because I keep throwing logs on it. If I just stop and go, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So it's definitely an adaptation, just like any marriage. Unless the perfect marriage is out there somewhere that doesn't have any of those issues. But I think that's
not in this world.
Right. So, but it's been good. We just work together on things, and communication is huge. Communicating our needs, our wants, our struggles, and our battles, and and that was kind of briefly I've talked about on the podcast before. But we had Caden, and Court really struggled with the postpartum stuff, and because she was open about it, and we were able to talk about it and be able to get her the help that she needed to get through that together. It was. It's like you could see that struggle, and it could make or break you. It could break you. Like I could have been frustrated with her getting upset, or all these different things, and it's just like you got to just meet them on their level where they're at, communicate your needs to each other, and then put in the work. Be willing to die for them, live for them, serve them any way that you can, and really prioritize their needs. And then again, not being afraid to communicate what you need as well, and just working with each other. But I mean, we could talk about that all day long, probably, like the different experiences. But
I feel like I should be taking notes right now. So I'm like, man, I really appreciate following and just watching, you from afar. Again, we haven't hung out or gotten to know each other very well over the years. I'm sure that will change now. And
it should.
But watching you strive to learn and press in around those around you, we are some of the people that we hang around, and whether it be through just your small interactions that you have here, but you've been very intentional, and I hear that obviously your parents had that separation as well. I went through that as a kid myself, and for a while you're finding your footing and kind of trying to figure out, and let's be real, right? Like that rocks your view of your parents and what you believe, right? To a very core fundamental level. I was a little bit younger, I'm guessing. It sounds like you were in college. So I was, I think I was 13 or 14 when my parents went through it, which also was at the same time of the Great Recession, back in 2007. And at the same time, we were losing our house to foreclosure. And my dad lost his business, and all these things were happening all at once, and it really just rocks you. So I guess circling back to what I was saying is you got to press into those around you, because you are some of the people that you hang around. And you mean that quite literally. And if you don't have those people, right, like that's even harder. To be alone as a man is not something that we talk about near enough, right? Like
Mm.
most of us are not good at opening up and not good at talking about it, and I'm still not. Especially, I was being very transparent with one of the agents on our team the other day. I was just like, I'm still learning this myself. So forgive me as I learn how much I can and how much I can't share with you. That agent and I had a pre-existing relationship
Mm.
before he came on board, whereas Elijah and I, we're both kind of getting to know each other. So I just kind of openly shared, like, man, you're a confidant, and also now I have this weird like dynamic. It's weird in real estate if you know anything about it. Like, I'm a broker, but like they're not employees. None of the agents are employees. I'm here to help guide and facilitate their careers to be better and better, and hopefully give them opportunities and trainings, and just be around each other so that we can literally iron sharpens iron. That was kind of
Mm.
the premise of what Navigate North was founded on, was just pushing each other to do better. And like, me doing a lot of business hopefully spurs on one of them to do a lot of business, and vice versa, right? Like, we're all going to have these pitfalls. So seeing you surround yourself with people wanting to press in and get better, all that to say is just, I like it, man. It's very honorable. So it's been good to
Mm.
see.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So you kind of talked about a little bit about your story. I think now is a great time to kind of circle back into that, because you talked about the falling about out of the family situation in that business, and you kind of talked about where you are now and how things are great. So if you don't mind, kind of filling in the gaps a little bit, wherever you want to take it, man.
How much you got that timer behind you?
Right.
In the interest of time, I'll try and hit some of the high points
Yeah,
and
man.
literally the low points. But
Mm.
yeah, grew up right here in the Braden Lakes area, so I'm a longtime local. I've always been very transparent about this, but again, as I venture into my career, and there's just this weird dynamic of like how much you should or shouldn't be sharing, right? It's always a constant kind of tug and pull. But if I've learned anything over 8 years in business, it's the more open and transparent you are, the more people rally around that. And I'm sure
Mm.
you're kind of seeing that even with this.
Yeah.
Just the more that you are willing to share, like the more people get it, like it makes you human. And at a fundamental level, we all get it.
Mm-hmm.
So circling back, grew up in a Christian home right here in the Braden Lakes area. My dad had a business here in the area, cabinet business, doesn't really matter, but he worked right out of our property. So his shop was right on our property. We grew up kind of over by Ernie's, back in
Yeah.
that area, Green Gables, and yeah, it was an interesting childhood. I didn't really know uh, what I didn't know, obviously, but until there was this realization that, okay, my brain is wired probably a little bit differently. Being diagnosed with ADHD, I thought I was just a boy, but like the older I got, right, the more it played into, okay, like how do you learn? How do you not learn? What do you want to do? What do you not want to do? It's this weird dynamic. But growing up, we had a very dysfunctional home, and so I think my brain just really built up a lot of walls around that.
Mm.
You'll hear from a lot of scientists and doctors that like that's kind of what ADHD does. It really blocks out a lot of the noise, and in some intent and purpose, like it's really incredible. It's really been a gift now in my adult life because I can really go hard, and I
Mm.
can really focus in when I need to on what I need to. And so I really have tried to shape it around this business, obviously. But back then, it was an interesting upbringing. My parents were always fighting, always bickering, and obviously it led to a divorce. There was some abuse in there, physical, emotional, that kind of stuff. Nothing beyond
Mm.
that, but there was this dynamic of how do I have a childhood still, and how do I go to school and pretend like everything's okay when
Mm.
the entire world around you is falling, right? Like, and I'm sure it sounds like even at Pensacola, that was kind of the same thing that you went through. It was like, okay, everything's collapsing back home. I have to be present, be here, and still be plugged in. And so through that, obviously, you build a lot of resilience.
Mm.
I then, after my parents' divorce, there's kind of this period. Obviously, I wasn't really talking to my dad a whole ton during this. He, just didn't make the best choices, obviously, which led to where we were at. But
Mm-hmm.
then kind of figuring out, okay, now I'm kind of the man of the house at 14, 13, figuring out like, okay, I got to kind of work jobs to help cover some bills and stuff when I can, but then also still be in sports and, do all the things that, you're supposed to do at that age. And it was an interesting dynamic. So, you get to this point where like eventually start making patches, right? Like you find something to be maybe your relief. For me in high school, I was late high school. I think I was, junior or senior, whatever it was. Ended up, with a girlfriend and just really, elevated her, and she became far more than the Lord ever designed, marriages or, in that case, a relationship to be. And so when that crumbled, man, it was like, okay, Lord, back then, right, my prefrontal cortex was not fully developed. And if you ask my wife, it still probably isn't fully, but we're close. Turn 30 next week. So I
There
got
you
to get
go.
it, right? So that happened, and it just, the world was like so oppressive, and it was on me, and it fell into this state of depression. Just all these things are happening. At the same time, like our family kind of became homeless. Had once again, a dad that didn't pay child support and, didn't make the right choices. Again, I could just boil it all down to that, but ended up staying with a mentor for a while. And during all of that process, ended up on a 72-hour hold. Um,
Wow.
I think I was 17 or 18 at the time. Again, you block out a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I was sitting in a park. I grabbed as much pills as I could from my mom's bathroom, whatever, and was just planning to throw as much as I could down the hatch and hope that kind of pain could end. And again, this is with the knowledge of Christ. Grew up in a home that we knew about Christ, but we didn't know him as a friend, a relationship, personal. And so through that process, I was sitting there at a park, Buffalo Creek Park. That was where
Yep.
we were living in a townhome at the time, my mom and my sister and I. And literally, as I'm sitting there, like contemplating life as a 17-year-old, which you shouldn't have to do, right? But
Right.
that's where I was at. Uh, Got a call from this mentor and close friend, still to this day, close friend, and just how you doing, man? You know, um, it's been a while since I've talked to you, and the Lord just told me I had to call you. So,
While you were sitting in the park.
yeah, while I was there, and obviously, right, like you know, the one close male relationship, I just broke down and told him what was up, and obviously
Wow.
things changed pretty quickly, but yeah, I had to be a senior while that was happening. I remember going on a 72-hour hold in high school, came back the next week, and nobody knew what had happened. That was wild. You look back and you're like, worst possible thing that could happen. But now, and I'm sure I've listened to several of your podcasts, like people that have been through whatever experience that was so hard on them at the time, it shapes them and it crafts them. And typically they wouldn't have it any other way, right? Like,
Mm.
yeah, there's things we could do, but it changes you into the person you are. Um, and so then post that started to kind of find a footing actually at Lakewood E-Free here in Baxter, and
Mm-hmm.
just got plugged in, ended up really serving in missions capacity. So went on a short-term trip to Central America, and then ended up like the Lord's asking me to do something more with this. I love serving people. I love having conversations, breaking bread, coffee, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
may be, scones. Those things dangerous, but um, ended up back in Central America for a 7-month mission trip when I was like 19. Uh,
Okay.
Went there, didn't even take a lick of Spanish in high school. Why I took sign language, like that didn't help me. Still doesn't help me. So I ended up there, and by the Lord's favor, He gave me a heck of a lot of perspective.
Mm.
Um, my problems seem so small, even now looking back, right? Like I think about it, I'm like, wow, we got this due and this is coming up and I got to shift and adjust this. And now I have to serve my kids and my wife and my team. Like all those problems back then seem, like just tiny, but
Right.
just got a lot of perspective. And I think that's something, if I could encourage any young man out there, maybe listening to this, like get yourself in a capacity where the world is so much bigger than you are. That's really hard, if I'm being honest, in the Brainerd Lakes area, because
It is.
we're a very tight community in a sense that we don't have enough diversity, if I'm being honest, and we don't have enough of whatever it might be that you can know that there's so much more outside of your world than here. I would never live anywhere else because this is just such an incredible spot to grow and raise a family, but through that process began coming to this realization that my faith was unique. Obviously, all of our faiths are unique to us, and I had to kind of take control of it and stop letting it, sit on the bookshelf. And yeah, there was some periods in there, right? Like, I'm kind of rambling now, but there was some
Love it,
periods,
man.
yeah, you're still hitting a valley, but I remember it being explained to me, right? Like your journey in life is kind of like this, and all those valleys that you keep hitting just aren't quite as low as the last one and the last one. And you're kind of on this kind of climb. It's not like this and, you go lower.
Right.
Maybe you
Uh-huh.
do, but obviously your knowledge that you grow along that way allows you to deal with each valley differently.
Mm.
Um, and then, yeah, I ended up meeting my beautiful wife at church. I had gone over to Casino Assemblies out in Pillager there, small little country church for a while. Just there was a lack of young adults at Lakewood for a while. So I was like 19. I was looking around. I'm like, okay, like just in this distance, right? Like there just wasn't enough, people my age. And so I'd gone out there, connected with some great people. And she was up visiting. Her uncle is still the pastor out there to this day. And she was visiting for the 4th of July. That would be like 2016, something like that.
Okay.
And, through that, we ended up just connecting. And obviously, I pursued her, right? Like, beautiful girl at church. I mean, come on.
Yeah, sign me up.
So we got connected, and, then there's a whole other set of stories there now still being written as my wife and I learn life and do life together. And yeah, it's grateful to be here every day.
That's amazing. So in 2019, when you had gone on that missions trip, had you kind of been working at that time, or what were you working in, and kind of what got you into the real estate business? Had you always thought you wanted to get into real estate, or what had you thought you wanted to do while you were in
Not
high
a
school?
chance. You go back to high school, college, any of it. I don't remember anybody ever coming in and telling me, "Hey, you could go be a realtor." It's nobody's first career choice, right? And I kid, maybe it is. I don't want to offend anybody out there who's listening to this. It might be some people's. And I don't say that naively, like I don't enjoy it. I love what I do now. But kind of stepping back, there's a couple of questions in there. My missions trip was actually probably like 2013, 2014.
Okay.
And so that's where I really developed kind of a love for people.
Mm.
I joke with my friends in ministry, and it's even this business or ministry would be great if it wasn't for the people. It is what it is, right? Like that, that's the core and the essence of what we do in ministry, in real estate, in your role. That it is what it is. We can't take the human emotion out of it. Ended up kind of discovering I liked people there. Came back. I had mind you, grew up pretty meager means, like we always had enough, right? Until we didn't, and we ended up on the street. Um,
Mm.
so at that point, I spent some time with my mentor until we could find a new rental, really. But I'd spent all my money going on this missions trip, like obviously I fundraised as well along the way, but I came back and I'm like, oh, I'm broke. Like this is real broke. So I ended up in road construction of all things, working
Okay.
in South Dakota. A friend of mine from this church out in Pillager was doing it, and it was good money, right? Looking back, and I was like, yeah, we're raking it in. But it was brutal, like 80-hour weeks, just out there in roach motels, traveling across the state of South Dakota. But through that, ended up in a sales position back in the Brainerd Lakes area with another friend, and that didn't last long. And I just car sales is a terrible business. So I'm like, let's one up it and let's go into real estate.
There you go.
But the process just kind of jumped in with 2 feet first. To answer your last question there, my wife and I had just gotten married. It was 2017 when I got into real estate, and I was working this sales position, and I remember the day very vividly because I had a plan. For an ADHD guy, I had a plan. I was already signed up to go to real estate school. It was like a month after my wife and I had been married, and what I hated about sales was it was so high pressure, right? Like I had to sell a product, or the managers through me had to sell a product, right? When you're sitting at a desk, your car salesman, like he can't do jack squat. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's the manager that's making all the decisions. You're just a vessel at that point for their anchor of the day.
Right.
And I had this sweet old lady. Like I loved being really opposite, like low pressure sales in a sense where it's like, like let's talk through it. Whatever's right for you. She came in, she's like, not buying a car today. I'm not buying a car. And you can just tell sometimes when, people are truly at their core, they are not going to buy a product. And if you try to push a product, at that point, it completely tips the entire scale. They will never buy something from you. Literally, like Kane. Like she came in and was like, she's like walking across the sales floor, and they were like, "You got to sell her this. You got to sell her this." And she just needed to figure out numbers. She needed to figure out where she was at. I think she was single, elderly,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "You got to sell her. You got to sell her." And I'm like, "She's not buying today." And like I told her, like, "Hey, here's the numbers." I passed the numbers across the table, and she got up and started walking out. Literally the same thing. Like. And I remember just getting screamed at, "You get her back in here! You get her back in here!" And I was like crying. I was like, I hated it. Awful.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I quit. And he said, what? And so I quit. I mean, just a couple of months prior, I sold like 30 cars in a month, right? Like it's not like I didn't know how to sell cars.
Right.
Awful. So I quit that day. It was like 11 o'clock on a Friday. Came home and I told my wife at noon that day. Or no, I called her because she was at work, which coincidentally happened to be a very large real estate group here in the area. And I told her, I'm like, hey, I quit. She's like, you did what? I mean, this is a woman who just swore to like spend the rest of her life.
Right.
You did what? And she knew about the plan. It was like 3 weeks from that day. I was supposed to start on like a Monday or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, yeah, I couldn't do it anymore. She's like, okay. And I said, don't worry. I've already completely adjusted. I called the school down in the cities back when like real estate school was not just, online. And I was like, I readjusted to this Monday. So like quit at 11 a.m. By like 1 o'clock, I was signed up to start Monday. And, it's not a ton of schooling, but literally a month after we got married, I had to leave my wife for like 4 weeks straight to go down and go through these courses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, I jumped in feet first, really with my back to the wall. And I, in some sense or another, I enjoy working from that position the most. Pushes me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I gotta grab a drink of water because that was
Yeah, go for it. I'll join you. Does that noise ever haunt you in the middle of the night? Yeah, you wake up sweaty.
No, it's more the manager. Like, you get her back in.
Fair enough.
In that chair. Like, brutal.
Do you think you didn't want to push that because you knew she wasn't going to, and you're like, I'm not going to try to beat a dead horse? Or was it because you had like a little bit of compassion for this lady's situation? Like, this is what she wants. I'm not going to try to shove this in her face kind of thing.
Yeah, I think a little bit of both, right? Like,
yeah.
I worked best literally just kind of helping people get to the point where they knew they needed to be without like hard selling them, just through conversation and getting to know people. People don't care about, anything that you have to share with them until they know about how much you care. Really.
I love that.
So, yeah, for her, I knew she just kind of, I think like her husband, if I remember right, again, this is really reaching back, but I think her husband was like, had just passed and she's like trying to figure out what to do with 2 cars and like figure out, what to do for herself and her living situation. And just like in sales and kind of in your role, sometimes you're just wearing a therapist hat. Sometimes you put on your Allie Gilmer hat. And
shout out Allie.
Yeah, you just shout out to Allie. you just get to know people a little bit more as to where
Mm-hmm.
they're at, and the rest kind of happens naturally.
I love that you said that quote, and I've heard it before. It's people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and that's
Exactly.
exactly it. People come into the jail and they're all upset. They see my badge and they're like, "F you, pig," and this and that, and you're like, "All right, you done?" And once you kind of meet with them on their level and just kind of listen to them, and like you said, throw that therapist hat on,
Yeah.
and that's why I enjoy having people like that, like yourself, on the podcast because it's like I've never worked with you as a realtor, but just hearing your story and kind of seeing how you operate, you can tell that you care. And like, if I were to buy a house from you, like going in there and you're throwing numbers at me and all this and that, and being like the businessman, sure, it's good to know that stuff. But at the same time, when you show that you care, and I'm like, okay, I can really tell this guy cares about me and my situation. Like that just means a lot. Like even Courtney and I, we were this is kind of related, kind of not, but when we were seeing different doctors for when we were gonna have Caden obviously be delivered. We kind of had to choose who we like to work with the most, and one of the guys there throughout the whole process, all of them were focused on her and her situation and everything, which is important. That's how it
Yeah.
should be. She's the one about to give birth. But one of them saw my hat, and it was my logo, my Iron Purpose hat, and he's like, "What's that all about? Or what's that mean?" And so, then I kind of got to share, and he was really interested, and I could genuinely tell that he cared about me, so he's gonna care about my wife and the service that she gets. So it's like, man, like that's exactly who I want to talk about. People or talk to and talk with and share stories with is the people that, yeah, they're in their position of work that they do, whether it's real estate, corrections, being a doctor, and you care about the people, you care about your job rather than just the paycheck and actually making a difference. Like that's take my
Absolutely.
money. I'm all
Absolutely.
for it. I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So you finish up your schooling,
Yep.
and you what'd you do from then? Was it just all right? Here we are. We're
Yeah.
successful now.
Yeah. No, it definitely was not. I mean, the first year was great, great, and not at all what I expected. All in the same. I ended up, for a very good first year, I ended up helping like 21 people or something, and I was like, "This is awesome! This is incredible!" But there was so much new coming at you. There was so much like trying to figure it all out, trying to serve people truly at their highest, at their most expensive investment that most people will ever make. At the
Mm-hmm.
core of it is typically real estate. Trying to serve them well and not be like everybody else, right? Like they say that the average, human in the US knows 7 realtors. Thinking about it, yeah, it's probably true. So how
Mm-hmm.
do you separate and differentiate yourself from everybody else? I think in our area, it's varied. It's kind of gone up and down now over the years. Everybody's a genius in a bull market. Now that we're not as much in a bull market, there's less realtors around, which is kind of good in a sense. But I had to figure out a way, and I was like, back then, I'm like, I'm young, I'm a millennial. Now I'm like watching these Gen Zs and freaking TikTok. You won't see me dancing at houses. I hope. Maybe I have. Watching, like, I even have this incredible young lady on our team, and I'm like, man, I'm starting to get old. Like it's setting on me. But back in 2017, nobody really in our area was doing Facebook ads. Like nobody was doing it well. So again, being naive, stupid, whatever you want, impulsive, who knew? I went and, again, my wife and I didn't have a ton of money. We had just bought our first house together. Thankfully, she had, some money saved up a little bit to help us into our first home together. That's a whole dynamic that took a while for me to understand too, is like, we become one. I felt this burden and this guilt. Like, I came into the marriage literally with nothing to give her other than, who I am,
Mm.
which still, it's obviously not enough for what Jesus calls us to, but it was enough for what, you know, for her and I. But I came
Yeah,
into it, I'm going to go on rabbit trails because that's how my brain works. I
do
will
it.
get back to it all.
I'm
Um,
following. Let's go.
but it came into it and I was like, okay, I got to understand that like we are one, our monetary, even what we had before or lack thereof is one. And so she supported me in the sense that like she knew that I was going to figure it out, right? Like,
Mm.
obviously she knew that enough to marry me, but jumped into it. And at this point, it's like I was cautiously leveraged, and so sure we had the money in the bank to probably do what I needed to do. But long story short, I went out and I learned how to personally do the Facebook ads myself. I spent like It was like $3,500, which again, not a lot of money, especially now looking at my bills each month, but a lot of money to me back then. So I'm like, worst comes to worst, I pay this off in 5 years. If I crash out, I can always recoup it. But if I take that 3,500 out of my savings, it didn't make me feel as confident, right? So I went and I was able to get a small personal loan, and I learned how to do Facebook ads, and I did them pretty darn well. Then came the realization, like, okay, my highest and best use of my time isn't doing the Facebook ads, it's and hanging out with people and stuff. So
Yeah.
eventually later on, through growth in business and better understanding of business dynamics, like I'm like, I'm just going to hire a marketing agency that helps me take care of it. But I've told some of the team, like, it's kind of like that janitor type feeling. Like, I needed to know how to do it and the whys behind it so that I could then take it off my plate and teach others either how to do it or bring somebody else in who's way better at it than I ever was.
Right.
And so I'm trying to take each of the agents through this off-ramping process you need to learn how to meet with people. You need to learn how to do the deals. You need to learn how to do the paperwork behind the scenes so that you can utilize our client coordinator, because then you know what you're putting on her plate. Then you know how much work you're putting on her. And it's not just this like distant connection of like, oh, she's doing it, she's got it taken care of. Long story short, kind of circling back all around, I got into Facebook ads and I learned how to do that. And I did videos and, I just figured a way to get in front of people where they were already at, right? Excuse me, these Canadian wildfires are getting me.
We're in the house.
Oh my goodness. But you go out and everybody's, at the time was on some form of social media and even at a restaurant. Right. Half the time people are talking about real estate, right? So I just figured a way out to be in front of them and try to make my business look different and try to make, myself look different and build that personal brand outside of, whatever brokerage I was at the time.
Love it. And so how long has Navigate North been a thing? And that's kind of been your bread and butter, your child, right?
Yeah.
You started it up.
Yeah, so Navigate North was formed in 2023, late 2023. So year and a half in, really. Like, this is our second full year in business by the end of 2025. So I've been in it, like I said, since 2017. And yeah, it's rocking. Like, we just had the 4th of July parade here in Nisswa. And, we were messaging a little bit about that.
Yeah.
I was just very humbled and grateful to sit there at that 4th of July parade and, for one, have less on my shoulders than the previous year, because it was just me, Elijah, and our client coordinator, Alex. The first year, we're putting on this massive float. We had a ton of great friends that showed up and made us seem way bigger than we were. But nevertheless, year 2 rolled around. I'm like, wow, we doubled in size. How did this happen? So we've added 3 more realtors since then, and now we have another marketing gal who works, with us kind of as freelance. So we're almost 2 years done with it now, and it's been incredible.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Throughout the past 2 years, and I've found myself with the podcast a couple times. I spent a lot of time on a video and I put it out there, and there was one where I spent a good amount of time on it. I felt really good about it, and like 2 days had gone by and I went back to check on the views and there was 0 views. I was just like, well, that sucks. So I had to like kind of come back to the, why am I doing this kind of thing? And it's not for everybody else. It's cool if people get to see it, but for one, it's for me and it's for whoever needs it. It's not about the views and everything. But there was a point where I was just like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this if nobody's even going to watch it? And thankfully I was able to get over that. But has there been a moment for you at all with this Navigate North business where you're like, man, what am I doing? Is this really it? And how did you work through that? If there was those moments of, should we be doing this? Should I not? Kind of thing.
Yeah. Man, that's a good question. I think in some level, every one of us, no matter what we're doing, we have a down day, right? I'd be lying if I didn't say it. But at the core of it, the reason that I started Navigate North was a couple of things. One, I was reaching my limit as to what I could personally enact change through. And again, at this weird subconscious level of my brain, I love seeing people served at an extremely high level. So much so that it rubs me really wrong when I see people not getting it. It's like, oh, come on, like you could have made better choices there or whatever. And so I can only personally help so many people per year.
Mm.
Um, there are agents out there that do hundreds of deals on their own, but you're just a number to that agent. I never wanted to get to that spot. There
Mm.
are agents that do just a couple and they're part time, and that's totally fine. I knew that, I was capping out pretty much every year. I was hitting like 40 or 50 deals. I was helping 50 some people a year buy and sell real estate. And I was like, this is like, I can't go beyond this level. Personally, for my wife, for myself, for my kids now, I can't do any more than what I can really do. And so when I came to the end of myself, and then I realized, like, okay, I can train other people. Where I was at the time, just I didn't have the position, or not even a title, because it was less about that, but just I couldn't affect change the way that I needed to personally see or hope that people wanted to be trained to
Mm-hmm.
do this at a high level. At essentially, I realized, like, okay, I can train other people to do it just like me or similar, like, right, because we're all independent contractors kind of working alongside. So there's this whole other dynamic that I'm still trying to figure out. And I tell the team every day, like, I don't know what I don't know, but we're going to figure this out, So we're working through this dynamic of, like, well, now all of a sudden, kind of like church planning in a sense, right? I can train people to hopefully go out and do it at an extremely high level and care about the Brainerd Lakes area. Because if we, and I'll just say this, as Christians, aren't
Mm.
out there in any sort of industry, this is a weird industry. You don't see a lot of Christians do it at a high level. I don't think, and I'm not even saying I do it at a high level, but like, it's just a weird industry because it's so heavy and it's hard. People don't view us well, right? Like, the public's perception. I'm right up there with politicians, man. I don't know if car salesman or politician, or like, they kind of go back and forth. But if we as Christians don't intersect ourselves in every industry where we possibly can, that means that, the people at the jail aren't getting served by somebody who knows Jesus as their
Mm.
Lord and Savior. And, somebody who needs to go talk about their perinatal, experience and their depression, or, whatever that they've gone through, if those people aren't out there, or doctors, or who, all the different guests
Yep.
that you've had on aren't
Mm-hmm.
out there serving in those industries, that means that people, that consumer, whatever that that industry serves, they're getting served by somebody who doesn't know Jesus. It
Mm.
just makes me sad that there's so many people out there that are getting taken advantage of and getting taught wrong and getting showed wrong, all for the sake of a commission check or whatever, a check in any industry. And so there's this sicko level of me that, like, I need to train other people how to hopefully do it. And
Mm.
there's so many people that I've now been able to serve. 8 years in, I try not to keep track. I really don't know where it's at, but I think it's over 300 people now that I've gotten to help. If I look back, some of my best experiences with people are with ones that I don't agree with. Like, we have very different views, but we have very great conversations throughout that process. And yeah, there's several that come to mind, but typically it's just people that I don't share the same views with. And man, I love having those kinds of conversations. They're hard, they're gritty, and yeah, I'm probably too serious, sometimes. But when you go through the amount of life that I've been through,
Right.
you don't joke as much as you probably should. So that's honestly something I'm getting better at now as I venture my way through life. So
No, that's an awesome outlook. If it's kind of like when you're sitting there wondering if you should do it or not. It's like, well, if not me, then who? You know, it's
yeah,
it's I can't remember the verse off the top of my head. It's who will go for me? Who's going to do it? It's like, send me. You
send
know,
me, Lord. Yep,
send me. So my
absolutely,
hands up. Let's go. Let's go to battle if we have to.
absolutely, yeah,
Love that.
100%.
Another question here. So I was just at my mom's tonight, and I don't remember if I touched on this while I was recording or not, but um, she recently bought a new house, so we were at her current house tonight with her husband, and my three younger brothers and I were there with my wife Courtney and my brother Noah. His wife is there with our two kids, or the kids. So we got to be there as a family, and my mom is going to be selling it here pretty soon, and to be able to just be in that space where I spent 20, 26, 27 years of my life, growing up in that house and that property, all the memories that were just within it. To hear that she was going to be selling and moving, it kind of hit on an emotional level. I'm a very sentimental guy. Courtney would kind of laugh at it a little bit, but geez, I hold on to stuff, and I got some badges here, and I got a sign here from Michael Chandler. He signed it and stuff. It's something I really hold on to, really cherish a lot of stuff. But anyways, being at home, with my brothers tonight, I got to throw the football in the backyard with my brother, kind of one last time. We grew up doing that, so it was just like, man, it's crazy how a location, how a home, how a building can hold so much value to somebody. And for me, it's when I prayed at dinner tonight for everything, I asked God to help me remember that it's not the building, it's the family, it's the people who were there in our lives that make it what it is. And it was just a really special experience. And I was like, oh, I'm having Brandon on here pretty soon. I'm going to ask him this. But being in real estate, selling these houses to people or helping people sell these homes, do you ever get invested in some of the emotional sides of that, where people are selling their home and talking them through, like, hey, it's going to be all right. This is what you have to look forward to. And maybe it is just a home, or you're selling a home to a young family and they're going to raise their kids there. There's going to be so many memories. There's going to be highs and lows within those walls of that building. Is that something that goes through your mind as you're doing your job, understanding that it's more than just a home to these people? It's going to be memories and a lifetime of experiences.
Yep. Man, yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. That's really what we were founded on, was truly helping people not only where they're at, but where they're going to be. Knowing, again, once you've been through that amount of life, like, you kind of know the dynamics in a way that many people don't always, I say, get blessed with to go through that. But you'll kind of hear that of like, what that taught me, allowed me to do X, Y, and Z. But getting back to your question, there were kind of three main things, that we had. It was, when we were founded, it was helping clients live well, steward wisely, which we've now changed steward to navigate, because obviously navigate and steward are very similar, but nobody knows what steward is. It's like an old word now. So live well, and what that is at a core foundation is helping people get to a healthy spot in life, right? Watching my parents lose everything, lose their house to foreclosure, all the things that I started to understand, my eyes were open at a young age, like budgeting and balancing and maintenance and all these things that come into play, teaching people where they're at. That's not just first-time home buyers. That's somebody looking to spend memories at their lake cabin that they don't know North Long from Moberg or whatever. Like, they don't know the difference in the lakes, and helping them live well and accomplish their goals, navigate or steward wisely. That's maintaining. That's like teaching them, like, okay, here's who you connect with to do this. And we get clients all the time reaching out to us like, hey, do you have a contact for this? We've got a guy, guarantee you, or a gal. We've got so many great businesses here in the area, and I'm a huge fan of like connecting people in the community. I think it is so cool to watch and see dynamics play together, and then like, oh yeah, those people paired together exactly like I had hoped, and then to impact others, live well, navigate wisely, impact others. Kind of like, even, I'm not a huge Dave Ramsey guy, but there's a little part of me that loves his overarching, helping you live like no one else so that you can later then live and give like no one else. And real estate, again, at the core, is most people's biggest investment that they'll ever make. So if you can help them live well, navigate wisely, and then impact others, you've kind of hit the cycle. Brian Buxton just ran the cycle for the Twins yesterday. That was pretty cool. And I'm not even a Twins guy, but that's just thinking, cool. But you've hit the cycle of like literally helping them. And now I've seen several of my clients that have like bought their first home, sold it, moved up to their next home, bought an investment, done, so many of these things. And I'm like, it is so cool to just, I guess, watch people's eyes be opened to specifically what that can do. But at a core level, getting back to your question, like, yeah, I love thinking about their next thing while we're going through the process. Like, as we're showing them homes, you learn so much about people and what they really want. And we do this thing where at the beginning, before we even get to show you a home, like, you have to sit down and either over a coffee or a Zoom or whatever it might be. And we have this list that we put together of like hey, this is what, Bailey and his wife want to accomplish. And we have that because when you're having a one-on-one like this, you say things sometimes just emotionally, but in typically your non-emotional state of mind. So you get people to like, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And now I have a list that I can hold them accountable to as they're shopping or
Mm.
doing whatever. Like, hey, well, Bailey, you said you guys didn't want X, Y, and Z. This house isn't going to help you in any of those areas.
Right.
Oh, that looks pretty or it looks cute. It's like, okay,
Right.
man, ultimately, I'm just here to, remind you, like,
Right.
this is your list that you put together with me before we got through this. And then same thing on the sales side. Like, now I'm helping so many people sell just, that same kind of process of like a legacy or emotions or memories. And it's not about pushing them to a price that's going to sell as fast as possible. It's about trying to understand what they really want to accomplish, hear the things that they're telling us and the things that they're not telling us, and just being willing to work with them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I've got one person, he's just not in a rush. Two, three, four people that just aren't in a rush. And hey, I respect that so much. You're not going to hear any pushing or anything like that from me. But there
Mm.
might come a time where one of those people calls me up like, it's time. It's time I disconnect price from emotion, and it's time that I let the next person steward this property or this
Mm.
legacy, this lake home wisely. And then that time comes when you're there to kind of serve them at their highest or their lowest, right? Like it could be the hardest thing they ever do. But if you're there to do it with intentionality, I guess, and grace, that's kind of what we're founded on.
Amen. That's awesome. And to be able to be a part of that experience, that's got to be special. Well, cool,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, it
One
is.
more question for you. So on theme, like I mentioned before the podcast, I like to ask each of my guests this on par with staying sharp. It's kind of the thing I like to say is stay sharp. So in dealing with your business, the people that work with you, and then coming home and being a husband and a father, and then going to church, being a man of faith, what are some things that you do to kind of stay sharp and on your A game, so that you're able to work at a high level and high capacity and still be able to give to your kids and your wife without burning yourself out?
Hmm. It's a good one. Don't always do it well, right? And I'm sure that's probably everybody's immediate answer. There's a definite disconnect that happens when I detach my faith from my work.
Mm.
When I keep those things neck and neck and aligned, and not even aligned, but like plugged into one which serves the other. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
for a long
I
time,
like
when I
that.
was early on in my career, I probably disconnected more from my faith, thinking I had to go further or go harder in the work for a season. There's this book called Family First Entrepreneur. Highly recommend it. And it talks about, you remember like an old gas stove at grandma's house or something. You have four burners, four main burners in your life. You've got your faith or your wellness, you've got your friends, you've got family, and you've got work. Really, at the core of everyone's life, your four main things are all connected to one of those. And basically, what it says is, you could probably have two of those burners on full blast, but the other ones are cranked way to the left. You're like off pretty much at that point. So for me, my work and probably my family were, my two biggest things. I didn't spend much time with my friends, and I didn't spend much time in my faith area. My burners. So now, as you kind of make that realization, you slowly start to adjust them and kind of balance them out because most old gas stoves, you couldn't have all four of those puppies cranked up to hot for any long period of time. You're just going to have
Right.
issues, or you're going to burn the house down. One of the two. Granny's going to die of carbon monoxide poisoning.
Right.
Something's going to happen. It's not going to go well for you. And so now, as we start to adjust and throttle those back, I guess all that to be said of figuring out again how to make my world bigger than myself. For me, that's like serving. I'm on a board for homeless ministry here in the area. My Neighbor to Love Coalition. That's one of my areas that I can be a small outlet. I don't have as much time as I'd like, but we're getting better to pour into that ministry and to now teach my kids.
Mm.
It's weird. You talk about your sharpening yourself, and in that question, I hear that I need to pour out my cup more on others. So I get sharpened personally more when I am pouring out on others and less when I'm sharpening myself, which is so
Yeah.
counterintuitive. I don't know if that vibes or meshes. If you had a similar experience.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I've told like my wife or my brothers growing up too, like I'd be going through something, and they're like, "Man, I know you're dealing with that. I don't want to have to worry you with my things." And it's like, no, honestly, I get my cup is filled when I'm able to help you out, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So like knowing that I'm helping other people, even at work, like people may come in on a DUI or something, and there's a older lady sitting in a cell just crying, and I'm just like, oh, I got all these other things I could worry about. I don't want to have to deal with this person. That's a mentality that I can have. Or I go in there and say, I noticed you're really upset. How are you doing? Like, what's going on? And when you're able to help that person out, I think I relate as well by trying to sharpen that other person. It in a way helps fulfill me in what
Yeah.
I need to do.
Yeah.
And I really love that analogy about the four burners, because you know you try to blast all those things on full, you are going to run out of juice eventually. That's an amazing analogy. But no, I agree, man. Helping other people, having that servant minded approach to life is just super fulfilling, and I can lay my head down at night going, I poured into somebody else, and maybe I didn't take a little more time for myself today. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I was going through that where I realized like, man, my cup is empty, and it's because I wasn't pouring out onto other people. And I had a conversation with my friend Mark Loshko, and he just kind of said, "Hey, usually when I get to that point, I can look back over the past couple of weeks and months, and sometimes years, right? Like before you realize, like I haven't been pouring out onto anybody." And for me to have been mentored by some of those guys who literally, helped keep me alive through some of the
Mm,
toughest stuff. I need to, in some small sense or another, pour out that favor where I can onto to others. And I'm still learning and still a very, very broken man. I'm still grateful to be here and be with my beautiful bride and three incredible kids at home. So yeah, praise the Lord, man. There's great grace for
absolutely.
you and I, as our friend Matt Nagel says. So
Amen. I love
yeah,
that. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for being on here, man. Honestly, and getting a little vulnerable, sharing your story, like that's huge. I get goosebumps right now saying that, because that's how we learn, that's how we grow. I think a lot of times through life, we think we have it all together, or maybe I look at you and the posts that you're doing on social media, and I go, freaking hey, man, I wish I could be like him. He's got his life all together. He's happy. He's got a successful business and this and that. And when I hear from you on this side of it, and it's like, oh no, okay, he's going through what I'm going through, or he went through what I went through, and he's able to get through that, or maybe somebody is in that situation right now. They're looking through those pills, going, "Man, maybe I shouldn't do this." And then they see
yeah,
this and go, "Oh wow, he went through that. He was able to get through it too." So it's beautiful. I really do appreciate you taking the time to come on here and share your story. And I think you touched on it a little bit. I think this is the beginning of a good friendship. It'd be cool
I agree,
to
brother.
meet up and get to know you more. But where can people find you? Where can people find what you got going on? And if say somebody wants to buy a house or sell a house, who do they reach out
Yeah.
to?
Yeah. Reach out to me. Reach out to one of our team members. We're right here in downtown Nisswa. You can find me on obviously Facebook. I think it's Brandon Hedlund, Brandon Lakes Realtor or something. I don't even know anymore. I'm on there a ton, but also again, I now have a company that tells me what to do, how to do it, and I just do, right. I trust that there are people that are in better positions. So Facebook, Instagram, hop on, get connected, but just reach out through a text, call, coffee, break bread. Um, we do better as humans when we are not in isolation. And
Mm,
it's like you were talking and we were talking about throughout this, like press in, don't allow yourself to be isolated. Social media can be great, but it's just a tool. And of course, it's just a scratch on the surface as to really what's there. As a human, I'm broken. I have a family. I'm a sinner. I have all the things going on that everyone else does, and we're all just kind of trying to figure this out one step at a time. So,
mm-hmm.
yeah, reach out. We'd love to serve you and your family, whether it's, buying a house, selling a house, or just getting a little bit of insight. Again, we love it. That's how we fill our cup. So, it's been a real pleasure. I'm excited to see what the Lord does in your life. As a father, man, I'll be continuing to pray for you. Yeah, just it's going to be a special time. It's hard,
Amen.
but it's going to be special. It's so good. It's so worth it.
Amen. I love that. Well, thank you, Brandon. Again, appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, brother. We'll be
All
talking
right.
soon. See ya.
Sounds good. Appreciate it.